Hi and good morning. You know, guys, if we continue to do nothing, then we're going to face exactly what we do today, tomorrow, next month and next year and the years to come. And really all this we're doing is just destroying, the future generations' ability to, have a reasonable quality of life. And more so, we are facing them, as some of us already feel today, in not just poverty, but what would closely reflect slavery. They're not addressing very serious issues. And that is why, I've decided to call this white collar crime, because that's exactly what we're dealing with. Very clever white collar criminals who are right now, perverting the course of justice, committing all sorts of crime, and legally, by their, efforts, allowing themselves to get away with it. There's no point if I don't bring on things I say, facts. So I just want to talk about, the justice system, not just here in the UK, but around the world. And if we just focus on, the Julian Assange case, somebody's been, imprisoned in Belmarsh prison for years now. He faces extradition to the United States, where people have made threats and planned to kill him. Yet we have thousands of immigrants coming to the UK every year seeking asylum, and it is granted with a lot less evidence. The person, or let's face it, the director of the CIA came out and admitted openly that he had planned to kidnap Julian Assange and murder him. So, there is one of the strongest cases for granting asylum here in the UK, but it has been denied to Julian Assange because of what he has been accused of. Of course, there is no evidence ever been presented, and he has never been found guilty. And our justice system states here that no one will face a punishment until proven guilty. He's not been before a jury. He has had no case at all succeeded against him to support any claims of wrongdoing, yet he has spent, years in jail. And over the coming days, we may see that extradition take place. Who is behind this? It's white-collar criminals. It's the same criminals that told us at the beginning of the outbreak that this came from a bat cave and then ended up in a wet market in China. But then we found out that the first people that had died from this were people that had worked in a virology department in Wuhan. And then it was commonly accepted that it was a leaked virus from the Wuhan laboratory that had managed to go all around the world. There was a certain organisation in charge of health. I think you know who they are, but these days we have to be very careful who we mention, because of the policing now on YouTube has got absolutely ridiculous. And yes, we received another warning over the last week or so. Even though we'd just gone through their training, as they call it. So it was removed, but only removed for less than a month and then re-added back onto us. I really don't know why, in some respects, they come as hard down on this channel as what they do. I can only put it, that there is some level of credibility I present with what I talk about. But, nevertheless, it is the crime and the white-collar crime that is coming from particularly a few organisations which are heavily funded by global taxpayers' money, our money. And we would love that money to go on more relevant and important things. I'm sure you would agree. Infrastructure, healthcare, welfare, and, other things like that, as it should do. There is a gross public mistrust of public funds taking place right now, and these authorities and governments do have a responsibility to spend that money appropriately, and they're not. But they will continue to tell us lies like they did about the war in Iraq, which killed hundreds of thousands of people, including women and children, over the false pretext that that war was started because Iraq was developing and had got weapons of mass destruction, yet none was ever found. So on that pretext, somebody should be facing criminal charges for actually committing atrocities and face war crime tribunals, but no one has. And we see this happening all the time. There is a two-tier system in most of our countries, and it is one for the general public and not for them. I could go on with the global warming scam and the CO2 lies, which are generating over $1 trillion a year of our money into this, which is changing a lot of our industry at an alarming rate. And yet they continue to tell the lies, support it with very poor scientific evidence, and silence anybody that talks out alternatively to what they are suggesting is the cause of these problems. As I've said before, no one from these departments or any organisation related to a government has even took on the possibility that global warming could be caused by a low solar output over a consecutive amount of solar cycles. Yes, I'm talking about the grand solar minimum, in short. Or, the amount of cosmic rays that are in our upper atmosphere that wasn't usually and is recorded to be on the increase, as well as a weakening magnetosphere. Both of these incidences are happening as a result of a planet, our Earth, going through a magnetic reversal. A very rare event, but this hasn't been considered to be a contributor to climate change in any factor. Yet we know cosmic rays interact with the jet streams in a way that they form seeding platforms for water to condensate on, and then in turn make the jet streams very sluggish and fragment, like what we see today, the polar jet stream fragmenting into the tropical jet stream. And of course it is very widely and commonly known that when these two incidences happen, warm and cold things come together, we will get precipitation in the tropical regions, and we will get heavier snow showers in the northern hemispheres or the polar regions. But not even considered a possibility. And then there is the third, which is very well documented and supported to change climate on our planet, and that is the returning to a glacial period. And these organisations don't even mention this, where we go through a natural cycle every 100,000 years known as the Milankovitch cycle. And we are, as I have shown many times and presented facts, showing you that we are well into the return of another glacial period. Yet this has not been taken on board as a contributor. They talk about CO2, being the cause. At current, it is 430 parts per million, and they say that this is enough to trigger a warming effect and cause climate change. Let's put that into perspective. CO2 in the atmosphere is a trace gas. It is at 0.04%. And out of that 0.04%, the amount that mankind puts into the atmosphere is only 1% of that. Because 99% of the CO2 that is added to our atmosphere is caused by natural outgassing of oceans and land. And that makes a total in our atmosphere of CO2 of 0.04%. So what they're saying is that that small amount, that even smaller trace amount of mankind's added CO2 to the atmosphere is the bit that is responsible, and the 99% has no effect, because the world for thousands of years has managed to contain that 99%. And not even mentioned the Milankovitch cycle, where the Earth moves out of its spherical orbit into an elliptical orbit every 100,000 years, and as a reason for going further away from the sun, as you would expect if you moved your hand away from a fire, you wouldn't feel the effects of that fire. So it's the same for the Earth. As we move further out on the elliptical orbit, we get cooler and we return back into a glacial period. But what they say is quite the opposite. In fact, I've mentioned this many times, they are always 180 degrees away from the facts and the truth. And why is that? Well, put it to you that in the reason for CO2 causing global warming, well, it works very well for them at the moment, because they are raising £1 trillion and distributing that as they see fit. The wars that we're seeing in Israel and in the Ukraine at the moment and elsewhere are just ways for the industrial military complex to profit from it. And let's face it, they are literally profiting off murder. Our governments have many ways of distributing, the tax-raised revenue, so that they can put it into not just their friends' pockets, but also in their pockets non-directly. And, we should call it out for what it is. It's a conflict of interest. And yet there is nobody being removed from their jobs even if they are found to have a conflict of interest. And I'll just give you one example. If there is an ongoing war in Ukraine and you're in Parliament supporting the war and, the funding of that war using taxpayers' money, if you've got shares and stocks in a company that manufacture those weapons, well, they're going to be receiving orders to build more. So they will be producing more, charging for more, and their stocks and shares will be increasing. And people that hold stocks and shares in that company and also work for the governments around the world have what is known as a conflict of interest. I'm sure you are aware of what conflict of interest is, but there is no criminal justice being brought on behalf of the taxpayer when even, people are found to have a conflict of interest. It is natural what these criminals will do. If they can, create loopholes in laws, they do it and they profit from it. Now, what this means for me and you, hopefully if you've stayed this long in the video, is that we are going to continue seeing our expendable cash that we have. If some of you still have a little bit of expendable cash, you are going to see that reduce and become smaller and smaller, like I've been warning for years. And you're going to see this happen a lot more from now on, because we have just unleashed now in the world artificial intelligence, and as far as I can see, this puts everybody's job on the line. So you might have been told, say 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when you worked in a shopping centre or a shopping mall and you was a cashier, that you would have a job for life. And then the self-service cashier tills come about. And then, as we've seen in the UK, in the United States, these cashiers get wiped out. You used to have 20 or 30. Now you're lucky if you see 1 or 2. And that is the same for a lot of other jobs. If you look at the automotive industry 30, 40 years ago, again, it was an industry that you was told you would have for life. And if we compare a photograph of the automotive production line of 40 years ago to one today, you would see that there are very few workers in factories, because they've been replaced by automation and robots and computers. But we are going to see even more so lose their jobs, because now we have self-driving cars, which will soon be self-driving buses, which will soon be self-driving trains, self-flying planes, self-driving commercial trucks, etc. And then we have IT jobs. And even it will move into the entertainment industries, as it already is. Into the world of book writing it will move, just on the prompt of giving an idea of what the book should be about. It's already here. So what I'm saying to you right now is, we have arrived at a time where we cannot no longer say nothing, because I'm sure, even if you're like me, you are in the corner and there is no further for you to go back into that corner. Yet if you stay at this point in time doing nothing about these things, then I don't know what will happen from that point out. We will probably all find ourselves on the streets at some form of way, because the cost of living will have priced us out of our homes. It will have also priced us out of eating a reasonable quality meal. It will have deprived us of having less heating, and it will deprive us of the light that lights our rooms on the evenings. And I put it to you that this is not a vision or a life you want to see or you want to experience, as you may well be doing right now. And it's certainly not a life that you want your children to be brought up into. So, we think that by sending our kids to college that they're going to get a good education and a good job at the end of that. Well, we can see that the actual promise is quite a different outlook. It is a world with no prospects, very little wealth and well-being, and therefore the picture of the future is a very hellish looking one, to say the least. So doing nothing today will be just giving the same results back to you as doing nothing last year, and doing nothing tomorrow won't change anything either, or even if you do nothing next month or next year. So, hopefully I've explained that these problems are not going to go away by doing nothing. So something needs to be done. And I think that is what we can discuss in the comments section below. And if you can't afford a little bit of time to make a comment, or even think about a solution to this problem, or even give a suggestion, no matter how good or bad it is, then you are allowing this to continue. And it's like self-harming. The alcoholic or the drug addict will not stop taking drugs or drinking alcohol if you keep giving it the drugs and the alcohol. And the white collar crime committer will do the same. If you keep on allowing it to commit crimes, it will see that it can get away with them at first and commit even bigger ones later. And let's face it, we're talking about murder, we're talking about war crimes already, and we're talking about money laundering, as well as legislative crimes and policies. So, I'm saying something needs to be done. We need to discuss what that something is, and we need to agree on a solution, and then we need to put that solution into practice. That is the only way we are going to address this issue that most of us now are in. So I'll just briefly mention that there is a link down there. If you can afford to support what we do at the observatory, you can use the link. You can become one of our patrons if you want. It's entirely up to you, and none of this is mandatory. And please, if you are struggling, especially if you have children and you're struggling for money, don't use that link. We completely understand. But I would definitely like to see, you leave a comment in the section, maybe from the video up, if you thought, what I was talking about in this video was worthwhile. And the only other thing for me to say is, I wish you the best, you and your loved ones. Take care of them, as always. Bye for now.